Very professional.
I know. Look at this. A new professional setup. We've got a guest tonight. We've got lots of things going on. It's Thursday night here. I got my Gothic Dark MAGA hat.
Dark MAGA.
Took me, I believe, 3 months to get in the mail. You order one of these from the official site, and they were so backed up that it took 3 months to get this hat.
Dark MAGA could be the tagline for this nascent administration. I mean, Melania Trump was Dark MAGA on the day of the swearing in. Like, you think that lady had a machine gun in a violin case somewhere. She did not come to mess around.
She looked like the harbinger of something. I wouldn't call her the harbinger of death, but she was like she was there. And she, we found out, she dresses like that intentionally. Like when she wore the jacket that said, "I don't care anyway."
Yeah. Yeah. She's very particular with her fashion choices.
Remember when was it her assistant or somebody tried to turn on her and release like tapes that she had recorded and it just made her sound cooler?
Yeah, it did. It made her sound more of a badass.
Like when she was like, they were like, "Oh," she said, I don't care about the Christmas decorations," or something like that. And like the full quote was something like, "I don't care about decorating the White House for Christmas when there's kids that are in need." I like, it was some crazy.
I know.
It made her look like $1 million.
Yeah,
more than normal. I wanted to start with something. So Sarah Parshall-Perry, senior legal fellow at the Ed Meese Center at Heritage. By the way, I didn't even have to look that up. That's how
I'm glad you've got it down because it's a mouthful.
It's a lot. It's a lot. But look, you're one of my favorite people. We're going to be joined by the EJ Antonio in a bit. But I want to start with this because I want to show a video. Lots of stuff going on in the world. Have you seen... and I always forget his name. Al Green, because he's like the singer. I always look like somebody. By the way, if you guys are liking this, make sure you hit the retweet button. Welcome this wonderful Thursday to the show. I'm jumping right into this, though. I'm going a little fast. I don't need to go this fast. I can slow it down a bit. But Al Green wants to impeach Donald Trump, based on his dastardly deeds. Have you? I really can't get enough of this. Hold on. Let's see if I can do it this way. Look at this. Look.
Play the clip.
Here we go. Ready? You're a legal expert, so that's why I brought you on for this one.
I rise to announce that the movement to impeach the president has begun. I rise to announce that I will bring articles of impeachment against the president for dastardly deeds proposed and dastardly deeds done.
Okay, can you you're a legal expert. Can you define dastardly deeds? I think you need to have a curly Q mustache and a monocle to talk about dastardly deeds.
Honest to God, it sounds like something out of a, Arthur Conan Doyle's Sherlock Holmes story, dastardly deeds. I'm not quite sure that Representative Green knows exactly what he's talking about. And I'd love to know exactly what he thinks is going to form the basis of articles of impeachment that he apparently intends on filing, which, by the way, requires 2/3 of both chambers of Congress. So I'm not exactly sure how that works in theory. And by the way, haven't we been down this route before? And also, by the way, haven't we also seen criminal prosecutions and civil prosecutions? And haven't we seen not any fewer than 4 federal lawsuits brought against this man? And yet 2 assassination attempts, 4 federal lawsuits, impeachment, and the man is back in the White House. So I don't think you can keep a good man down.
No, you can't. I'm still just trying to figure out I've read the Constitution. It's been a bit, I don't read it every day. I'm sure you do as a Ed Meese legal fellow at the Heritage Foundation.
I have a mini Constitution I carry around. It's like this big, and it drives my 20-year-old son nuts.
You know what I keep with me at all times? Keep this with me.
That's a much bigger, heftier, weightier pull than my tiny Constitution.
I need to stop my phone, my camera from tracking me. Yeah, no, this is look at that. That is just I just put it in my back pocket and I pull it out and I
just read it on the subway. I know, why not?
Yeah, we don't have subways in Texas.
I
don't remember dastardly deeds and
yeah.
Dastardly deeds.
No, I don't have any idea what he's referring to, but it makes for good political theater on the floor of the House. So
if you're a staffer for Al Green, do you approve him going to the floor to say dastardly deeds, or do you just kind of look at it and go, what brother, like what is happening here?
I've got to believe that he went completely off script. And even the cane, the affectation of the gold-handled cane next to him. I mean, honest to God, it's like, again, I go back to Sherlock Holmes and, Moriarty, his nemesis.
Just maybe try not to look like a villain. Like maybe just, like you said, like Moriarty, like it really is like, can you just put a little bit of effort in? Like the left is good at entertainment. I mean, I am too. But a majority of the left, and they've had Hollywood for a while, they have to know that he looks like he's right out of central casting for like an evil guy from like an island that's trying to like maybe mutate people or something. I don't know.
Remember the island of Dr. Moreau?
Right.
That's exactly what I'm thinking of. Shuck just posted, impeachment so easy a caveman can do it. Which I love, by the way. That's kind of one of the top comments for this segment. I mean, it's ridiculous, but it makes you really appreciate the fact that the Dems didn't get the memo. They didn't get the memo in 2016. They had 4 years to get the memo. They didn't. They doubled down on progressive ideology and everything from open borders to progressive gender ideology, just throwing billions of dollars at American education, which resulted in 40% of American kids below proficiency rates in both math and English literacy. They've not gotten the memo. They haven't gotten it on crime. They haven't gotten it on rogue prosecutors. And I'm looking at Al Green and I'm thinking, how completely out of touch do you have to be? Now, of course, his particular district is a predominantly blue district, right? So he's going to have the same constituents, absent some kind of extenuating circumstance, over and over again, who will continue to elect him into office, which means he gets to continue to grandstand. But for the rest of the country that is not an Al Green's district, we're tired of it. We really are.
I'm trying to see exactly where so it's Texas 9th. Which, we have I won't talk about districting here in this great state of ours. It's a fantastic place. Where is he? Is he Houston? No. Yes. No.
Missouri City.
Oh, good old, who could forget Missouri City? Right. It reminds me of, well, it's part of Houston. It's part of Houston.
Yeah.
That's I don't know if you've ever been to Texas, but when you get down to Houston, here in wonderful Grapevine, Texas, a fantastic town, a Shangri-La, if you will, the Christmas capital.
I thought all of Texas was Shangri-La.
No, not Houston. So it's weird because you drive down to Houston, and Al makes this. Al, should I turn up your microphone? You gonna talk or no? She's just producing tonight. And by producing, she's just taking notes on the show so that we can do some clips of this later. But she's doing a great job. But when you get to Houston, there's like trash on the roads that you don't see up. Even DFW. DFW has construction all over the place, and I'll complain about that all day long. And we have drunk drivers. But you get down to Houston, and there's literally trash all over the place on the road. It reminds me of Baltimore.
Yeah, well, you and I know a little bit about Baltimore.
Yes. Hey, I buried the lead here. Here's where we should have started. I got out of my jury duty this week.
Can we talk about that?
They weren't going to have me on a jury to save my life. And I filled out the additional questionnaire. So when you get jury duty, you fill out an additional questionnaire where they ask you, we hear at least in Texas, where they ask you like certain the things about like your politics and stuff. And so I said, like, well, they didn't say your politics, but your hobbies and what you do. And I said conservative political commentator, media person. That was going to get me kicked. Law degree, the highest level of education, law degree. That was going to get me kicked. Have you ever been arrested, or has anyone you've known, a friend of yours, gotten arrested? I have not. Somehow it didn't expunge from my record years ago. But in 2001, I was arrested for accessory to a prank phone call. Single use.
Are you kidding me?
No. And it's still in my record. I have no problems. I'll see. Victoria Jordan says it might be worse in Baltimore now. I have no problems keeping that on my record because it's ridiculous. Telephone misuse, single call. They arrested 5 people at a college radio station. And the one time that I wasn't part of making prank phone calls on a radio show ever in my life, I was the chief engineer nerd at the station. The campus police raided the police station and arrested 5 people for a prank phone call to a Kinko's. This was put on trial and then thrown out immediately by the judge, who was like, what are you wasting our money for?
Wow.
A phone call to a Kinko's where literally the call was, if they're making lots of red copies, they're commies, make sure you report them to the government. That was the prank call. that the police had recorded, and they were like, it was like an undercover sting by it was our late night radio host at the station, and there was a cop who was hiding behind newspaper in like the Commons, and like he was very proud of this sting, like a total. The entire campus police force that was on duty that night, 5 people raided the police station, and I opened it. So they literally, when they knock on the door, right, of the police station,
right.
Everybody's in the studio. I have to open my office door. I'm clearly not in the studio at all. And I opened and you could see it, there was all glass, the whole radio station. So I opened my office door that was not glass, and then opened the door for them, and they pushed me into my office and threw me in cuffs.
You're kidding me.
No, and they threw everybody in cuffs, and they interrogated everyone. It was a multiple hour ordeal. And they didn't tell anyone what they were arresting them for until we got to the station. It was like the most ridiculous thing. And it was thrown out complete. Oh, and they also refused to charge the kid who didn't go to. So I went to UMBC, the University of Maryland, Baltimore County. They refused to charge the kid who went to a different college, who was so they charged me, who was in a separate office, completely separate from where everything was happening. They did not charge the kid who went to a different campus, who was in the studio.
You're kidding.
The whole thing was just like, when I went to law school and I learned, I mean, I learned a little bit more along the way, but after law school, I was like, good God, like I could have defended myself.
Yeah, very easily. But when you're a scared college kid, you don't know the difference. You know, the police show up and it's incredibly intimidating.
It wasn't even like a drunk thing. No, I was not on Crank Yankers with Jimmy Kimmel, but I could have been.
Yes, you could have.
Yeah.
I 100% could have seen you on Crank Yankers.
I could have had a puppet made of me. It would have been a good time.
Oh, 100%. By the way, can we go back to the trial and how you got off? Did you ever make it to voir dire, or it was just the additional questionnaire and you were done?
I wasn't going to make it. So they actually, they threw everybody out. They must have cut a plea deal and threw everybody out. So it was 80 people there. And by the way, when they said, I should have led with this. They said, do you know anybody personally who got arrested? And I said, Steve Bannon. But I should have put on, who has been on my show, who is a good friend, who has wanted to stop by the house, but every time he's in town, he can't stop by the Kyle Rittenhouse. Oh. That should have been, that should have been literally, that would have been it. Wait, you're friends with Kyle Rittenhouse? Yeah.
100%. Should have led with that.
You know, silly me. But yeah, so that was that. What, Al? Oh yeah, and I got to dismiss. That was it. So Al, see, this is why you should have your microphone on now. I muted you there.
Hello, I'll come in.
Here, you can talk.
I just don't want to be typing and for people to hear my typing. That's the only thing. But hi, Sarah.
Hi, Alex. I want to see your face.
Not right now. I do not look nice.
I would also like to know why I can't turn off my tracking on my. I now have lost the console on my AI camera, and it's now just tracking every tiny movement that I make. So I need to turn that off. But so they threw everybody out. Al, can you turn on the fan real quick, by the way? Oh, here we go. So they came out and they said, hey, is there anybody here responsible? And like nobody raised their hand. He's like, a guy comes out with a stack of paper, which was all our dismissals, by the way, and the judge, the plea deal or whatever was put in. And I literally was the only person who volunteered because I was like, I'm bored to death. I'll do something, sure. And I was talking to the bailiff the whole time anyway, because there's nothing else to do. You're just going to sit there and stare at everything, stare at the wall until they call you. And he goes, oh, hey, everyone's dismissed. Let Mr. Young go down first. And nobody wanted to volunteer. No, I mean, look, if I'm stuck there, I'm going to be the one. Like, I'm going to be the one that like has a good time. But there was everything. They asked me like what clubs you're part of. I was like NRA Life Member was number 1. Tarrant GOP. Like, I mean, it was literally all the things that like no one. Oh, they also asked if I had any issues with cops. And I said, I was trained as a public defender in Baltimore City. So as much as I like cops, I was taught that they were corrupt with my actual personal experience.
Yeah.
And
of course, there was this experience where you were actually charged with accessory to a prank phone call. So that has a tendency to sort of, make people distrust the police.
It will make you distrust the police just a little bit. Yeah. But and actually, in retrospect too, after the fact, so I was a part of the graduate school after that, the graduate school, like graduate council, and the lieutenant who was in charge that night, he came up to me separately after an event once, and he goes, "You should have never been arrested, and I'm really sorry for that." I'm like, thanks, buddy. That cost my parents like $600 to hire a defense attorney back in the day.
I was going to say, yeah, with inflation, it's probably closer to $6,000 right now.
Yeah. So this was like 2001. So yeah. Yep. It was a nice time. All right, let's move on to other stuff. So aside from Al Green, and this one hits close to home before we get into all the other things that are going on, I can't believe that we still have people screaming about Project 2025. This is going to have some foul language on it, so everyone get ready.
Elon Musk bullshit, whatever, from taking away my boyfriend's fucking rights.
Deport Musk! Deport Musk! Deport Musk! Deport Musk! Deport Musk! Stop the coup! Stop the coup! Stop the coup!
Did you know that there's a coup? I thought we won the election. There's apparently a coup. Did you know?
Yeah, I actually thought we were trimming the size of government, but apparently we're taking over government because that's what a coup is.
There's DEI, like they don't like that, but apparently in this they yell about
Trans lives matter. Fuck Donald Trump.
I don't need to hear all of the things that they say, but there are somewhere in here. I'm not going to go back through it. They're still going on about Project 2025.
Where was this held? Why did I not hear about this?
This was in Minneapolis, apparently, but they're all over the country. So between this and then the immigrants that are showing up with Mexican flags to protest deportation, this is happening. Like,
I'm sorry, it's so stupid. I don't even know how these people keep a straight face, recognizing their hypocrisy. It's hilarious to me.
Well, they're not straight, a lot of them, but when you look at these crowds, like, are they paid to be there? I mean, really?
I think a lot of them are. I'm sorry, but we know that George Soros has paid a lot of the agitprops. We've seen the ads on Craigslist, not just for the Project 2025 kerfuffle, but everything from the Women's March, the March for Our Lives. Every time you see Black Lives Matter protesters, I mean, you can trace the activity that we see in a lot of these cities. And by the way, speaking of George Soros, now we recognize USAID has been funding open society organizations and the Black Lives Matter protest, which were in large part funded by George Soros. You want to talk about an incestuous relationship. USAID was essentially paying George Soros and Black Lives Matter protesters to burn down our cities. And thank you, Tim Waltz, for doing nothing about it, sitting there and watching the entirety of Minneapolis burn.
Yeah, well, he enjoyed that. That was his wife liked the smell. Remember, she would open up the windows to get a good whiff, a good little woof of what's going on. It was a great time for her. She really enjoyed smelling the city on fire. That really sounds like something out of like a 1800s, early 1900s book where they were like, we you know, sort of royalty, like look.
Tale of Two Cities. Yes.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh no, that it does seem a Tale of Two Cities. Absolutely. Yeah. It's been a while since I read that book. I think it was middle school.
But see, you do the reference, so
I did.
Than the average
you run over a pour and you throw a couple of pence at him, and then you throw a Mike Pence at him, and then you go from there. Hey, all right, so let's go to this because you wanted to talk about this. Let's see if I can make this look pretty. There we go. J.K. Rowling shouting out exactly what happened yesterday. Congratulations to every person on the left who's been campaigning to destroy women's and girls' rights. Without you, there'd be no images like this. This was incredible.
It was incredible. What a photo op. But I mean, what a study in contrast, right? A lot of the rhetoric yesterday on X was basically a repetition of the fact that Democrats were voting down sending sex offenders. These are sexual assaulters, rapists, pedophiles. These are individuals who've targeted women and children. Democrats in Congress universally voted down expelling them from the country, deporting them, and yet they wouldn't support women's sports when now it's not just 72%, which was fairly recent polling before the election. Now it's 79% of Americans want sports separated by biological sex. Once again, and I hate to sound like a broken record, the Democrats are not getting the memo on this. They lost the American people on this, among other issues. It wasn't just immigration. It wasn't just the economy. It was biological reality, and specifically the women's sports issues, because it is so obvious the biological distinctions play into the calculus here. This was totally commonsensical, but just seeing that picture, and it was so sweet the way he gathered all the little girls around him and said, why don't you come up? Everybody gets a pen. It was just really a very, I think, tender moment, but a moment for people like me who've been fighting for this for the better part of 5 years, because I was in the Trump administration at the Department of Education working on our 2020 rule, which, by the way, is now the status quo in the United States. Finding this to be sort of the photographic moment of this new administration, I think was incredibly gratifying.
Yeah, and I think the best part of this too is now that Riley Gaines has completed her mission on Earth, she can return to her home planet, and that's really what matters here. Hey, do you think Joe Biden would have been able to sign a document with all those children around? He would have been too distracted sniffing.
Oh, right? I was just gonna say. I mean, that'd be like a kid in a candy shop.
Look at this, by the way. Look, we can do. There we go. Now we have 3. Let's see if I can do this right. Yeah, no, we have 3 people over on one side. This is amazing. Welcome, EJ and Tony, to the chat.
Look at how professional his mic is and everything.
You have an IFB in? And now it's working. No, your microphone's not working. It's not working. This is going to be an ordeal.
And how about now?
That's better. It's better. There we go. I like this. No, I just think this was incredible, and he's just so, there's such a difference between how Donald Trump handles just human beings in general compared to Joe Biden. He actually, the thing that I thought was amazing about him yesterday was how many people he named in the room. I know he had a list, but he still was able to shout out. He knew exactly who he was talking about, as opposed to Joe Biden, who would confusingly read names and then call out dead people.
Yes. Yeah, and the front row was everybody from Steve Marshall from Alabama to Marsha Blackburn from Tennessee to Mike Johnson, obviously Speaker of the House. All of these individuals have taken a stand for women's rights. It is basic fundamental fairness. It's common sense. We have study upon study upon study that young boys express pubertal advantages, physiological, athletic advantages, beginning at the age of 11 or 12, when they experience a 20% increase in testosterone. Why? Well, because that's the way we're designed, right? So the minute that testosterone burst happens, then you have all the increased muscle mass and bone density and lung capacity and recovery time. Alex Johnson, who was a world-class sprinter, was beat 1,100 times around the world by non-Olympian male athletes, anywhere from 12 to the age of 40. Okay, this is a woman in the prime of her life, in the prime of her athletic career, and 1,100 males around the world can beat her. It is so obvious to all of us who've been following this issue that I think it was the issue on which the Dems got over their skis, and they thought they could convince the American public that it was really an issue about inclusivity, when in fact we can see with our eyes what happens when a girl gets her teeth knocked out on a field hockey field in Maine, or another girl suffers a concussion and traumatic brain injury on a volleyball court. This is common sense. The Dems, again, sounding like a broken record, they did not get the memo. This was a silent referenda, and the people voted for it.
Well, this also reminds me of what happened with illegal immigrants, where everyone knew what needed to happen. They knew where the murderers and the rapists and everyone was. And we were able to find them literally on day one. They were like, oh, yeah, they just went to their house and got them and deported them. The NCAA knew this was an issue, and they changed their regulations immediately. That's what I'm showing up there right now, by the way.
Yeah.
The updated regulation.
That was just today. They finally came to heel after the executive order. They finally came to heel. They recognized that the federal funding of all of these colleges and universities, they're really between a rock and a hard place. Do they withdraw from the NCAA because they know that if they participate on teams or include teams that have biological males and female teams, they risk their federal funding? No school wants to do that. And P.S., in the history of Title IX enforcement, no school has ever lost Title IX funding. I do believe this Department of Education under this president would 100% pull the federal funding, but they are now facing the withdrawal from the NCAA, risking their certification in D1, 2, or 3. because they don't want to run afoul of a civil rights investigation at the Department of Education. So the NCAA finally went, all right, I guess we have to call uncle on this and make sure that no males are competing in women's sports. They were the intractable outlet here. It was really the NCAA who pawned it off on the governing sports bodies and said, well, you guys like USA Swimming or you guys like field hockey, you guys make your own rules, which is how we ended up with things like Leah Thomas, who, by the way, University of Kentucky is now facing a lawsuit because, and University of Pennsylvania now facing a lawsuit because those teams had to compete against Leah Thomas and change in the same locker room. Leah Thomas, of course, Will Thomas, is a fully intact male who ran about 462nd in the country until, of course, he swept the 500-meter freestyle for D1 female swimmers. So,
yeah. Well, you know, when you suck as a guy, just go beat up women. That's the rule. And sometimes,
I mean, I think the real moral of the story here, probably the point that we're all missing, is the fact that men are better at everything, even being women.
That's true. I mean, you have to remember our very own conservative Caitlyn Jenner won Woman of the Year right after he turned into Caitlyn Jenner.
Now, listen, I'm outmanned because Alex is not on camera right now. So I'm just going to call BS on this entire line of dialogue.
Oh,
so
she's not going to weigh in. She knows her place. Let me hit the mute button.
Wow.
There we go. I'm going to hit the button on her. No, she's out there. She's making the money for the two of us tonight. I just do this for funsies. Listen, let's talk about something that I can loop EJ into here. USAID funding. See, I said funding because that's money, and you're an economic expert. What's the most egregious thing? By the way, Matt Gaetz, for all of his faults and good things, in August 2023, put forward legislation to abolish USAID. He knew it was up. His office knew what was up. Of course, his office was pretty proactive and they paid attention to things. But I think more than just him knew in Congress how corrupt this stuff was. And I didn't realize in the middle of everything else that the USAID was what Biden was referring to when he was holding back the $1 billion in Ukraine. Unbelievable.
Bingo.
That is just wild to me. And I think I have that actually. Where's the... I sometimes pull up that data on things here. Maybe I don't.
This is a clip back when Biden could still string a sentence together.
Well, no, not that clip. I found the document on it and I lost it. Don't worry about it. So you're going to have to take my word on it. But then, oh no, I got it. Hold on. I actually prepared for this show today. Here's the document from USAID. U.S. signs loan guarantee agreement for Ukraine for the $1 billion in May 18th, 2015. They followed right along with it. That's what Joe Biden was holding.
Plus 10% for the big guy.
Oh yeah. I mean that could. But how much money do you think went to places like the Clinton Foundation?
Yes. I mean, like this is literally billions upon billions of dollars. I don't know if you saw the clip of Zelensky the other day where he's saying that out of the, we've given him like 170 or 180 billion dollars thus far, right? Out of that 100 billion, they can't account for. Like even Zelensky is admitting it. And the crazy thing is he's using that as an excuse for why he needs more money. I'm so sorry. I lost more than half of the money you guys gave me, which is why I need more. It's absolutely insane. I can tell you where it went. It went to a bunch of corrupt oligarchs. It went to international arms shipments. I mean, this whole thing is an absolute joke. These are your tax dollars at work, folks. I mean, it'd be funny if it wasn't so sad. Yeah, truly.
Well, and because I'm the lawyer that your mother warned you about, and I handle all of these social cultural issues, I have to talk about a little bit some of the cultural issues. So we know, obviously, they were funding Black Lives Matter protests. We know they were giving money to open society corporations, the George Soros family of NGOs, $1.5 million for DEI in Serbia, $70,000 for the DEI musical development in Ireland, $47,000 for a transgender opera in Colombia, $32,000 for a transgender comic book in Peru, $7 million for sex change surgeries in Guatemala. Honest to God, this is what we have been paying for with our hard-earned tax dollars.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't understand why they needed to go create new stuff. They just could have like put Rent on a world tour, couldn't they, and covered all the bases. I know some Broadway. That's a thing. I don't understand. And again, you have the people who are talking about corruption, the people who are out there yelling about these Democrats who are out like, wanting to show up to USAID and knock on the door and walk in, which by the way, I have questions on both of you on that one. You would think that the people who scream the most about the audits of the federal government are probably responsible for the problems that are being audited and looked at. They're trying to hide from them. But what happens when can Democrats actually, or any member of Congress, just show up to any executive office building, walk in, and take a peek around?
No, they'd never get past security. Not a single one of them. I mean, there's a protocol here for a reason, right? Any more than Elon Musk can divest these agencies of federal funding. What he's doing is he's performing an extensive audit, and he's providing these recommendations to the chief executive and saying, okay, this is what we need to do. Now, it's going to take probably congressional authority, although there's some question here because USAID was created by executive order, so it may not need congressional intervention to actually unwind the agency. But I will tell you, you talked about Matt Gaetz introducing that particular bill a couple of years ago to dismantle USAID. Now we've got Greg Steube, who's already introduced a very similar bill to do the exact same thing. It's got a companion already in the Senate. I think it's great. I think it's honestly the best approach if Republicans now, because we have the benefit of disinfectant and sunlight to be able to look at exactly where our money's been going, including $8 million to Politico. And now, of course, those grants stopping. It's the first time they're not ever to make payroll, which I think is absolutely fabulous. But there's some question about the constitutionality of what you're able to do and what you're able not to do based on an agency that was created from executive order. Obviously, this is not an act of Congress. So it's going to be very interesting to see exactly the mechanisms of this. But Elon is doing what Elon does, which is looking at every dollar, every red cent, and he is making a determination on the things that are directly underneath his purview as the director of Doge, and I am 100% here for this.
EJ, how much of our taxpayer money do you think is going to actually be affected by this? Because when we talk about millions, it's like nothing, right? When like these couple of $1 million of things that we've just uncovered so far, and I'm sure that it goes much deeper and it gets into hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars. But this is barely scratching the surface, right?
Oh, sure. But I mean, basically, you got to start somewhere, right? Yeah. The journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step, or, if you're going to eat an elephant, how do you do it? One bite at a time, right? This is going to be a long slog. The swamp is wide and deep, but you got to start somewhere. And I was recently testifying in front of what's her face, one of the harpies in the Senate, Gillibrand.
No bragging.
Yeah, that really didn't narrow it down. I'm sorry, Gillibrand. I was testifying in front of Gillibrand, and she was essentially trying to pigeonhole me in an answer by saying, okay, what are you going to cut to save taxpayer money? And it was, okay, either you say you start listing things, right? And then she says, okay, well that's just not big enough, right? Okay, it's a long list of stuff to cut, or you say something like the defense budget, and you give too sweeping of a category, and then she says, oh, so you want to cut the whole defense budget? Oh my gosh, you want us all to die, right? So it's look, again, you got to start somewhere, and as Sarah was just saying, this is the kind of detail-oriented work which Elon does so incredibly well. The reason he has been so successful in everything he builds, whether they're electric cars or rockets, is the fact that he literally goes in to work and sleeps on the factory floor for months or years at a time. He knows every in and out of every part of the production process. And he really does watch every single cent. And he apparently is assembling quite the team over at Doge. And they are going through line by line. But look, it's a multi-trillion-dollar budget. There's a lot of lines. It's going to take a while, to go through it all. But again, like Sarah said, I am totally there for it. And this is a ride that I am more than happy to be patient waiting on.
This is a good question for both of you, by the way. Watch it, Sarah. He's got to talk more. You've dominated the time here, woman. Who decided where and how much was funded out of the USAID budget? It's your appointees, right? Don't you have political appointees there? Or are they just bureaucrats from DC that are funding their friends? Because at some point, there's no oversight into like who's funding what and how, right?
Yeah, they're political appointees, and especially so under the Biden administration. The budget, the entirety of the USAID budget, only 40% under the last administration went to food and humanitarian medical aid. 40%. That means 60% was literally all of these woke BS, progressive, socialist, lefty, commie, neo-Marxist initiatives, like a drag queen parade in Peru or funding sex change surgeries in Guatemala.
That's called Carnival.
Okay, so it sounds a lot fancier when you say it. Listen, I'm just going to say we've only been spending 40% of USAID's budget, and USAID is ultimately responsible to the State Department, which is why I think rolling USAID into the State Department is brilliant. They should have done that from the beginning. But everybody who's watching this probably knows that USAID for the past 4 years at a minimum was absolutely stonewalling Republicans when they requested classified information to which they are constitutionally entitled as elected officers of the United States. They not only thwarted the Republicans, they worked every single angle they could to thwart Donald Trump during his 2016 term, and now again during the initiation of his 2024-2025 term. This is something that has to be shut down. It's automatically overfunded to the tune of 60% of its funding. It needs to be rolled into the State Department, make government cheaper, faster, lighter, more efficient. And I think that's what Elon Musk is doing.
Sorry, EJ is a dumb guy. I'm going to ask you all money questions because you're a top economist. So I'm going to put you into the big square there. I'm going to move you over to the big square. How much of this money literally rolls down K Street into small firms? I just saw a couple of firms where it was like the Institute for Democracy or the whatever it was, and they're getting $56 and $60 million. Like, I'm sure you've done the digging into this. Like, and we're all swamp creatures here, whether or not we want to admit it or not. We're just not scummy ones. These are these small offices on K Street that have like maybe 6 employees, and they're getting $50 to $60 million and maybe dribbling it to build a shack somewhere in Africa?
Yeah, I mean, you got to ask, why is it that we have spent billions upon billions of dollars in the last couple of years on this whole broadband initiative, right? We're supposed to be connecting all these people in rural America, giving them high-speed internet access. You know how many we have connected? Again, after spending literally billions of dollars on it, zero, not a single one. And the reason for that is exactly the process, that you just described. It is the fact that you have these politicians, these lobbyists, these special interest groups that essentially establish these incestuous financial arrangements where the politicians, it's not just Democrats, it's mostly, but it's not just Democrats. The politicians are going to vote in all these crazy appropriations, which the bureaucrats can then redirect from how the law is written. It sounds real nice, and then they can redirect it to some other organization, which will basically then make a very large campaign contribution back to the politician who originally put that expense into statute. That's basically how this all works. So, to your question, how big is this? The problem is we just don't know. Yeah. I've seen a lot of estimates that range pretty wildly, Tim, and the reason for that is at the end of the day, it's just a guess. We really don't know. All we do know is that every time we find something, we always end up finding more, right? It's always only the tip of the iceberg, which is why the politicians are absolutely freaking out right now. And frankly, I think it's a big reason why so many senators all of a sudden who were no votes on a lot of Trump's nominees, all of a sudden they're getting in line and saying, oh, no, just kidding. We'll get the president's cabinet confirmed and we'll do it quick, right? Yeah. The politicians, I think, are finally getting scared because they're beginning to realize, the gravy train is over, at least coming to an end. Sorry, I'm just seeing the one comment. I haven't seen Democrats this outraged since yesterday. Yeah. I would amend that. I haven't seen Democrats this outraged since we freed their slaves.
Hey, and more importantly, look, this is a good segue. I don't pay this guy shuck, but boy, oh boy. What a time to drop in here and talk about our friends at Veebs. Let me get this pulled up here. Do a little science here. Whoop. Take a breather, everybody. Veebs did not get a dime from USAID. It's totally privately funded right now. If you want to invest in it, you can give me a call. You can also go find some contacts at veebsapp.com. But Veebs, for when you go shopping, you don't want to give people money, people who hate you, your hard-earned money. So you want to go over to veebsapp.com. You can scan the UPC codes when you go through stores. It tells you the information on the parent companies of the products, not just the product itself, to see how liberal or conservative it is. It tells you about the parent company. So, like, say, for instance, last week, someone, when Ben and Jerry's acted out, somebody wanted to, they said we were going to go get Breyer's ice cream instead. Turns out it's the same parent company, Unilever. So you'd be giving the money to the exact same place. And you would know that if you use the Veebs app when you go shopping in stores, and it gives you alternatives, conservative alternatives to buy from instead of the scum lib products. Also, I like this over at our friends at Kalshi. Kalshi.com/Tim Young. If you guys want to go hang out over there, I think this is a fun one. Will Trump declassify Epstein documents in his first 100 days? 37% chance. I think we might get it. But here's the thing about Kalshi. Predictive markets, much better than polling. If you want to learn really where things are going and you want to have some fun with your spare money, you can go over to Kalshi and take a risk on some things. There you go. Right now, apparently, 52% of people think Kansas City is going to win the Super Bowl, probably. I want to see how many. I'd love to see a poll or a Kalshi market on how many of the referees are bought and paid for by Kansas City. That'd be an interesting one.
All of them.
Literally all of them. The jobs numbers in January, the forecast right now, according to the predictive markets, is 235,000 new jobs. All sorts of fun stuff here. Which of these G7 leaders will leave office next week? I think Trudeau said he's going to leave for a long time, but you never know. At this point, I don't think he's going to go. But Kalshi.com.
Where would he go? Back to Cuba?
Yeah, you got to go to his motherland. Yeah, obviously, that's where he goes. So Kalshi.com and Veebs, and I've got the they're behind me when they're not up on the screen when I'm sharing the screen. So I've really upgraded this studio. I tell you what, a couple $100 can do. That's a Walmart TV back there. That turns out as a 50-inch. I'm no Walmart shill, okay, but the ONN TVs at Walmart. That thing was only $195 for a 50-inch TV. Brand new, 4K.
Hold on, but before I order it real quick, let me look up on Veebs and see what Walmart's score is.
Not good. You want to go to HEB. If you're in Texas, just know you're safe if you go to HEB. That's your good. And
I remember
Buc-ee's.
those. That was a Texas staple. Yeah, that and Buc-ee's.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Both
I miss Buc-ee's.
Both of them are safe. And of course, I'm CEO of the company now, which is pretty cool. I have my hat. I don't. Where did I put it? I don't have it sitting here. I thought I had it sitting right here. I don't know. I did so much media earlier today, and I had the hat sitting right here for a bit. Oh boy, there's only one of them. Oh, here it is. See, I'm ready to go. At any moment, I could rep Veebs. Hold on, let me do the. Takes a second. There's Veebs there, and then I have every color of there's Kalshi, like Kalshi. But here's no, that's me. Hold on, give me a second. 20 minutes from now, we'll get this done. There we go. Look at that, Veebs. We can go blue. We got everything back here. This is high tech right now. There we go. Veebs. Go get it. Veebsapp.com. All right. Let's talk about something that affects everybody right now because, again, Sarah's talked for way too long here. Love you, Sarah. Mm-hmm. I keep hearing the excuses from the left that tariffs are going to make all of our prices go up and they're a bad thing. I have a feeling you will disagree with that, EJ.
Yeah, it's funny. These are the same leftists who said that during the first Trump administration. And then as soon as Biden got into office and they all had the opportunity to take off all the tariffs that he put in place, they, for some reason, kept them all there. Maybe that's because they were actually achieving the desired end and they weren't raising consumer prices, or at least not appreciably. Look, at the end of the day, what's that, Tim?
I was going to say, it seems like they're a pretty good negotiation tool. Every time Trump said something about tariffs, our neighboring countries showed up and caved pretty quickly.
Yeah, exactly. Whether it was the president of Mexico or the governor of Canada, you name it. Everyone was very, very quick to bend the knee and to make a trip to Mar-a-Lago, or at least, in the very least, call Trump. My goodness, Marco Rubio shows up in Panama, and it's literally a matter of hours before they say, all right, We are no longer renewing the Belt and Road Initiative with China. And by the way, U.S. ships, including military, will now no longer have to pay for transit through the Panama Canal. I mean, it's absolutely amazing. Trump is getting literally everything he wants. And I think that's good news for the American people, because fundamentally what he wants and what he's getting is a better deal for Americans, particularly American workers.
For people who may not know, what is by people who may not know, what is the Belt and Road deal with China?
So essentially, it's kind of their version of our bizarre ritual of foreign aid, except what oftentimes Western countries do is they'll make these massive loans to third world nations, knowing that the money is not actually going to go to what the African warlord or whoever it is says that they're going to spend the money on. So they'll say, hey, please give us hundreds of billions of dollars to build this airport or whatever. And then again, it's a war-torn country, and the leader goes and they spend it on munitions or whatever. So they don't actually build any revenue-generating infrastructure with which they can repay the loan. So all of a sudden, the loan is in default. Now the IMF, the World Bank, sometimes it's just the Fed or some other institution steps in and says, okay, we're going to restructure your loan for you. And it just puts them further and further into debt. It's like refinancing somebody's credit card, but you're giving them a higher limit at the same time. So the country just ends up spending more money, getting further into debt. That is basically the relationship that a lot of third world and even developing nations have had with developed Western countries for decades now. So China steps in and they say, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to not just give you money so that you can build infrastructure. We're going to actually do it for you. That's why they call it the Belt and Road Initiative. It's actually called the One Belt, One Road Initiative because they want it to be all China's. And so then they say, all right, in exchange for building this airport, this seaport, these highways, these bridges, tunnels, whatever the case may be, this infrastructure that we're going to build for you, we now get to use it for free. We now get all these mineral rights, for example, access to a bunch of different resources from your country. So China really gets a sweetheart deal out of it, right? Except they're going about it, frankly, in a pretty smart way. They're saying, we're not going to be like the Western countries that have essentially inflicted upon you a kind of financial slavery. Instead, we're going to give you freedom, quote unquote. Now, of course, it turns out not to be freedom because then China just, strips their country down to the bone. But at first glance, it certainly looks better than the raw deal that a lot of these nations have been getting from the Western world, again, literally for decades. So, this is where China will go into a place like Panama and say, look, we're going to make all these improvements to the canal. We'll widen it. We'll add locks. We'll add lanes, et cetera. So you can, increase not only the number of ships, but the size of ships. We can increase Panamax, as they call it. Again, all of these things are being done because the Western world has really created a power vacuum of its own accord, right? Yeah. We really, really screwed up. And China's taking advantage of it. Fortunately, at least now, with Trump in charge, it looks like we're not going to be screwing up as much anymore.
Well, yeah, no, I think we're safe for now, but it's going to take years before we repair all the damage that's been done. I mean, it's incredible. Are we actually going to take control of the Panama Canal again, or are we pretty good with this deal that Marco Rubio just got for us?
I think this is a good first step. We're definitely moving in the right direction. Look, at the end of the day, if we don't nominally control it, it's irrelevant, right? Whose name is actually like stamped on the sign when you enter, completely irrelevant. But we need to be able to call the shots, right? The Monroe Doctrine is very, very real. Now, Tim, if you ever find a lawyer, you can have them on to explain what the Monroe Doctrine is. But whatever the case, America's got to control the Western Hemisphere. It's part of the reason why we need Greenland. People don't realize what a great strategic location that is in the Arctic, the resources that are there. There's a lot of really, really good reasons why the United States has such strategic interests in that very, very big island.
Yeah, no, makes a lot of sense. Before we go back to Sarah, again, I wish we had a real attorney here, but I have a law degree that I don't use. I'm the closest we've got on this stream right now. But are you a fair tax guy? Never asked you this.
I go back and forth. I mean, if I really had my druthers, I would just have a head tax, if anything. So that's a head tax is just, it's a per capita tax. So every person pays, 10 grand or whatever the case may be per year to the government. And that's it.
I mean, that would make sense, but whatever. Do you think Donald Trump will actually be able to eliminate the income tax by the time he's out of office? I say no. That should be a Calci.
I was just going to say, can we put that on Calci? Can we do that before the show's over? Can we get that started?
I don't know. I was told their team is headed to the Super Bowl, so they're busy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's tough out there to be a member of Calci.
Go Birds. Anyway, no, I don't think it's likely he's going to get it done before his term. Now, by the end of the second Vance administration, I think there's a shot. Look, we forget that the income tax is not a given, right? Not only did America spend most of its history without an income tax, but we spent our most prosperous years, our golden age, where we had the highest levels of sustained economic growth during that period. There literally was no income tax. Yes, it existed very briefly as a one-time emergency war measure. I get that. But outside of that, there was no income tax until 1913, right? So how did the government get all its money? Funded itself almost exclusively by tariffs. So this whole idea, going back to your very first question, this whole idea that somehow tariffs are going to crash the economy, that tariffs are going to make everyone poorer, that tariffs are going to crush the middle class. No, that was a period when we literally built the middle class. It didn't exist, not here, not anywhere else in the world. Again, this idea that somehow tariffs are always and everywhere bad, or that they're always and everywhere passed on to the consumer. I'm sorry, that's just not true. The record of history shows it's not true. The economic theory shows it's not true. That's not to say tariffs are always done right. They're not. Herbert Hoover probably most infamously signed the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act, which was passed by a bipartisan vote in Congress. And that was a disaster. It was not a strategic approach to tariffs. It was much more like just a complete shotgun approach. And it was done from a point of relative weakness on the part of the United States, so that it allowed other countries to engage in the opposite of reciprocity, essentially, where they imposed their own tariffs and on the United States in retribution. Conversely, today, the United States has all the leverage. And this is why, Tim, what you were saying earlier, Trump threatens this and they turn out to be a great negotiating tool because everybody just folds. Of course they do. Only a few percentage points of our exports go to Canada. Only a few percentage of our exports go to Mexico. Conversely, the vast majority of their exports come here. So if you want to look at it in percentage terms of each country's exports, the ratio is like 9-to-1, 10-to-1 for a lot of these countries. In other words, we get into a real trade war. I mean, a real trade war. What happens? It's a speed bump for the U.S. economy. They go into a deep recession. And they know that. The president of Mexico knows that. The governor of Canada knows that, which is why they're not willing to go toe-to-toe with President Trump, who has figured out how to essentially weaponize the purchasing power of the American consumer on the world stage. They're not willing to do it because they know they're going to lose. They're going to lose bigly. That's the other thing, is that there are no winners in trade wars. It's like any war. There's no real winner, right? There's going to be casualties on both sides, but that doesn't mean everybody loses equally. They don't. And so as long as your opponent is going to lose a whole heck of a lot more than you will, they don't want to have that fight.
Hey, by the way, for Shuck out there, Tim, you can get I was never convicted of anything. Just FYI, my accessory to a prank telephone call, single use is not a thing. Let's because now you've out-talked Sarah. We have to balance this out. Sarah's back in the big square.
No, we don't. We don't have.
I like being able to move people around to the big square. I feel very powerful to put you into the big square here or whatever. Sarah, you are obviously. I can't go. You actually do have a law degree. You're very. I hear you're pretty accomplished. You've done some things and law. What do we got going on in the Supreme Court? Because it's not just, I mean, these executive orders are one thing, and it's fun to follow along with all the executive orders and everything is happening. But there's like hot, serious stuff coming down in the Supreme Court right now. Again, like culture shifting stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we are really, when we talk about like becoming the golden age of America and where Trump is going with things, just in executive orders, it's one side of it. But the Supreme Court is handling a lot of stuff, and it should be in the favor of conservatism. It's kind of hit or miss at times. But so what do we got going on here?
There is so much going on at the court that implicates socially cultural conservative issues, right? I mean, the Supreme Court waited waist deep into the culture wars this term. And I really thought, we saw the Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health decision overturning Roe versus Wade. We've seen a couple of other very impactful cases, but sort of less directly related to social cultural conservatism, like, for example, the death of the Chevron deference doctrine in Loper Wright versus Raimondo Enterprises. This is actually, to my mind, one of the biggest cases, one of the biggest cultural turn cases I think we've seen probably in recent memory, to the tune of about 10 years. We would get one-offs. We got the one-off in Obergefell. We got the one-off in the Dobbs case. We are looking at porn regulation in the First Amendment. We're looking at ghost gun regulation, Medicaid restrictions on abortion coverage. We're looking at parental rights vis-a-vis religious liberty and LGBTQ curriculum, which they just took up. And then we're looking at employment discrimination law, where they're going to have to take the Bostock case, which is sex discrimination under Title VII, also includes sexual orientation and gender identity discrimination because they're inextricably linked. Now we have a straight woman passed over by a less qualified lesbian woman and a homosexual man. She is literally having to argue Bostock in reverse. In other words, I'm a member of a majority class. I'm the one that people generally don't discriminate against. But now I've got the proof to be able to demonstrate my employer is that type of employer that discriminates against the majority. So the Supreme Court is going to have to face a lot of really consequentially different cases. I think the marquee case of the entire term is United States versus Scrimeti. Now, this is the case about the constitutionality of the gender medicine ban coming out of the state of Tennessee. And by the way, there's another one pending right now. It's literally been put on hold, coming out of the state of Kentucky. That one is going to be on hold. Another one coming out of the 11th Circuit, that is also on hold, because once they took the United States versus Scrimeti case, they really had all they needed. But here's the problem. So now the Department of Justice is no longer under the control of Joe Biden. It is under the control of President Donald Trump. So that begs the question. We've seen all the briefing. We've seen all the oral argument. At any point, the Supreme Court could rule, but there's a possibility now that Attorney General Pam Bondi will file to withdraw the petition for cert, in which case the Supreme Court would have to do something called dig, which is they dig the case, dismissed as improvidently granted, or they would GVR the case, grant, vacate, and review the case. An alternate is that the Supreme Court may take the private party's case, LW versus Scrimeti, and go, all right, listen, we're going to truncate the briefing schedule. We're going to set this for oral arguments no later than the end of May or April. And we're going to try to get through this as quickly as possible, because now the issue's already come up to us. I don't necessarily want the Trump administration to withdraw its petition for cert. If they do, I would love to see the Supreme Court take that companion case, that's the private parties, and say, all right, we've waded into the culture wars on the issue of the constitutionality of these gender medicine bans for minors. And P.S., Tim, and EJ probably knows, I have written a very extensive legal memo on why these are incredibly constitutional bans. They would pass equal protection analysis. They would pass heightened scrutiny. They pass rational basis scrutiny, which is the lowest level of judicial review. It is a slam dunk for the state of Tennessee. I would hate for the Supreme Court to lose the opportunity to make clear that to the world, particularly as we now see a proliferation of these bans. We see them now in 26 different states. We've got the government's executive order. We've got Trump's executive order divesting Medicaid, Medicare, and Obamacare funding for these surgeries. That's brilliant. It is the first step in the process of turning them off the tap. This is a $5 billion a year industry. But if we could just get the Supreme Court to weigh in and say, okay, listen, transgender status is not a quasi-suspect class. It's not the same as sex or race or the immutable characteristics like national origin or ethnicity, and it doesn't require heightened scrutiny. This is something internal and subjective. It's not biological and immutable, right? Frontiero versus Richardson, that was the case where the justices wrote, listen, this is an accident of birth analysis. This is something internal, malleable, changing, subjective. No one else is subject to it. It is not the same as an immutable characteristic. I would love to get the Supreme Court to weigh in on that, because there are other implications of gender identity vis-a-vis equal protection violation claims. In fact, there are two cases pending right now, both of which are challenges to state Medicaid exchanges' failure to cover gender-affirming care or gender affirming surgeries for adults under the state Medicaid exchange. And so they have argued it's a violation of the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. If the justices come out and make it clear, that would clear up, I think, a lot of the litigation in this space. But I mean, we've got, to my mind, at least 10 cases that are going to absolutely rock the American culture as soon as these decisions come out in June.
Chuck asked that every one of these, by the way. In case you're wondering, guys, if you want to read some of their memos, both of these guys I think are incredibly intelligent. I give them a hard time, obviously, because we're friendly. But the other day, somebody asked me what the Heritage Foundation was, and I explained to people who may not know what a think tank is. It is really one of the centers for all conservative thought in the country. And you guys have multiple papers. You have commentaries that you can go through. Here's the beautiful photo of EJ right there. And you can take a look and really you can educate yourself on what's happening in current issues and policy. EJ's is there's his, but then we can go over. I actually shared yours yesterday, Sarah. You can go and read what's going on. You can take a look. There's a legal memo right there. Again, incredible work over at the Heritage Foundation. These two are two of the most brilliant minds in the country, one in economics and the other in Nirvana t-shirts. And it's really important. Then, by the way, when I went to look you up, Sarah, because I just put in your name, this photo right here.
Yeah.
That I like that. It's very, you seem very. That photo.
Yeah, a little more relaxed than we uptight Washington lawyers generally
That was
are.
when you starred as you were co-host on Full House when you were on that one.
Yeah, me and Candace Cameron Bure.
But it's better than that one that did Pants Off Dance Off. The middle girl who did Pants Off Dance Off when she was going through her little.
Oh, that was horrible. Oh gosh, what are regrettable cultural decisions for 10,000
issue, I think. Yeah. But no, listen, if you guys really want to educate yourselves, and I know there's a lot of very, very intelligent people who follow me on Twitter because that's why they follow me, is because they're so smart. You can go over to the Heritage Foundation's website and they have basically every center for every type of major policy that's going on in the country. And you have, again, these guys are really chill with me, but they're brilliant, brilliant minds, both in economics and the law. And you can go over and take a look at all of their research and their papers and their commentary and things that are going on and really learn everything you need to know about basically the right way to handle things in this country. Also, you can get a copy of this. I don't think this is for sale, but you can also get one of these from my studio being mandated.
The thing that shall not be mentioned. X-nay on the project pay.
And also, because I gave $300 to the PBS fundraiser, I got the tote bag as well, the Project 2025 tote bag. There were only about 5 of these made, and I was told that I was a priority to get one. And also, I believe I have the lapel pin in here as well. Yeah, they gave me the whole. I got the whole gift pack. So be jealous. But no, the Heritage Foundation really is at the forefront of everything in conservatism for me, even growing up. And I've been in politics now since 2001, my first internship. Well, actually, when I applied at the RNC and got rejected, nobody even gave me a call when I put in my my resume at the RNC in 2001.
And now you have more followers than they do.
And now people are coming to me for advice. So fuck you, RNC. No, it's nothing I haven't said on the radio too. Look, I think Whatley's doing a good job. Michael Whatley, not to be confused with Michael Flatley, the Lord of the Dance, is doing a great job over there. And he's finally winning elections. Once we shifted leadership at the RNC, things have really changed. But you know, it's the Heritage is the pinnacle of conservatism and the pinnacle of conservative thought. And they're also one of the only legitimate think tanks I think I've ever dealt with in America and in history of politics that actually puts up legitimate reports. And they're fortunate to have you guys over there, I think, unless somebody doesn't like you, at which point then they should get rid of you, you know?
That's fair.
I'm just. By
the way, can I just point out the tremendous compliment that I think it's a compliment that I just got from Shuck.
What did he say there? Oh yeah. There's your horse. Your horse is there with you too. Look at that guy. Wow. You guys have the same dog. That's neat. There's one. You have the exact same dog, the same breed and color of dog. That's amazing.
Isn't that amazing? Great. What are the odds? I mean, really.
I have no idea how that even works. Al, do you have any? Al, you've been really quiet, and your microphone's been turned on. You want to say hi to
No,
these guys?
hi, EJ. I said hi to Sarah. I'm taking notes, and you guys all have such good moments and points that I'm like struggling to keep up over here. I'm glad Tim is just rambling now because I'm like for the first time not typing ferociously on my keyboard.
I'm not rambling. I'm a very entertaining host.
You are. You are. No, it's good. You're doing well. It's just I get a break from the clippable, hot button issues. When you're shooting the shit with
Chuck
them.
remembers me all the way back since I was a professional replacement host on Sirius XM for David Webb, who is unlistenable radio. I used to fill in for a lot of unlistenable radio, and it was a great time. I actually believe I was Caroline Levitt's first national interview, so I'll make that claim now. Yeah, it was not good. She's great now, but
I tell you what, there was a big difference in her performance, I thought. Between when the campaign first started and they first brought her on to today, I think it's pretty amazing how much she's improved.
Oh, it's leaps and bounds. She is a different person than when she was first running for Congress in New Hampshire, and I got to talk to her then, and she was terrible. Now she's amazing. So, and that's probably because she learned from me. That's I give her the credit. It was me.
Well, you rubbed off on her. I mean, kudos to you, Tim. Really, she would not be where she is without you.
Yeah, no. By the way, no, Sarah was not watching when last night I did a 30-minute breakdown of the Corn Pop video, and that Al had a headache from last night. I watched it. Remember the original Corn Pop quote? It was about 2 minutes, and it was all over the place.
That was like 5 years ago, and that was when Joe Biden said, "I confronted a gang member, and his name was Corn. Corn Pop was a bad dude."
So we found out last night after
I had hairy legs.
A half-hour breakdown. Corn Pop was trying to dive. He had pomade in his hair, and he was trying to dive off of the diving board. And Joe Biden called him Esther Williams, and he said, "You get down here, Esther." And Corn Pop did not like that he was called Esther Williams, and he said, "I'll fight you in the street," where his gang had rusty razor blades. And so Joe Biden, before he went out, went to the machine room of the pool and got a 6-foot chain and wrapped it around his arm and went out to confront the guys with the rusty razor blades. And then they called it even because he apologized for calling him Esther Williams. That took a half hour. Honestly, I broke that down last night. I had almost like red yarn. I had everything but red yarn to put that together. But that is the story of Corn Pop. And that's going to be my cheap way of giving, like, if I go and speak at colleges in the near future, that's going to be my cheap way of getting out of it. I'm going to do like an hour 15, and it'll be like, 15 minutes of questions, 20 minutes of new stuff, and a half hour on Corn Pop. And then, 10 minutes of fucking around.
That's like the green golf ball joke.
I don't know the green golf ball joke.
No?
No.
Oh, it takes about 30 minutes. It's a very, very long joke. I won't go through the whole thing, but I'll just tease it real quick, and then we can do it another time. Or never. There's a kid dying of cancer, and the dad asks, what do you want for Christmas? Thinking it's going to be the kid's last Christmas, and the kid says, "I just want a green golf ball." And the dad's like, "Don't you want like this toy or this toy? Or do you want to go to this place or that place, whatever?" And the kid's like, "No, I just want a green golf ball."
And then they called them the aristocrats. Is that how that worked?
No, it takes like 30 minutes. I'm not kidding. Go through the whole joke. It's kind of like Norm Macdonald, and he would do the moth joke.
I love those. Norm Macdonald. Let me tell you something. I have been going back and watching his stuff. Like, because by the way, there's a channel now on the free TV stuff, like Samsung and stuff like that. They have a David Letterman channel, and they will just show all of the interviews of one person at a time. So it'll be like a half hour of Robin Williams, or a half hour of Norm Macdonald. Norm Macdonald stuff was amazing.
Yep. He was actually brilliant, and he made himself look like an idiot, but he was brilliant.
And he had to be conservative. He had to be conservative.
Have you seen when he went on The View?
Yes.
And he would rag on the Clintons and be like, well, because they have people killed. And they're like, you can't say that, Norm. Oh my gosh.
I tell you what.
Well, I thought it was common knowledge. Doesn't everyone know that the Clintons kill people?
Here's what we're gonna do, because we've been very serious with all of our things. This is how we're gonna end it tonight. We're going to do that. We'll watch that. We'll have a little watch along. Sarah, are you okay with that? Can you bring your legal expertise to this?
I suppose.
All right, so let me get.
Well, here's where we tie in the legal expertise with the great Norm Macdonald. Okay, at what point at what point, because these are public figures, right? And the laws are different, aren't they? Correct me if I'm wrong,
Yes.
but the laws are different for what you can say about a public figure versus a quote unquote private person, right? So at like where is that line with a public figure where all of a sudden you've said too much, like you've defamed them, quote unquote, right? Because correct me if I'm wrong, that's a different threshold than like average Joe private citizen.
You're probably the person on this. I mean, because you can't say absolutely, you can't intentionally try to harm somebody like what the View has done with Pete Hegseth and Matt Gaetz making their like wild claims about SA and stuff like that. For some reason, I decided to edit myself for once while because we're on YouTube. But you can't make what is the line?
So they can be submitted to public commentary and public derision. But if you say something, if you accuse them, for example, of something factually that is not true, that is sufficient for a slander or a defamation lawsuit. And of course, truth is an absolute defense to a defamation claim. So that means they would have to go through the entire court process to prove that what that individual was saying was actually factually inaccurate. And that would be the very expensive and unfortunately protracted way to actually get the clarity of their name back. But yes, so derision is fine. Criticism is fine. Hate speech is fine. Outright lies and publication of lies sufficient so that it is at least another person, right? So it is not just the saying of the thing, but the publication of the thing. That's sufficient to potentially bring a defamation case.
Has anybody at the Heritage Foundation, or did anybody over there do any like videos or anything on like when the View had to correct for and read their legal statements? Did anybody do that over there?
I don't think so. I do know, for example, that we're actually holding an event on New York Times versus Sullivan, which requires the actual malice portion of the public figure element. So in other words, if you criticize somebody and then you say something that's untrue and you do it in such a way so as to directly cause them harm, it's the actual malice standard from New York Times versus Sullivan. A lot of people have said that's too stringent a standard. It should be removed so that this is simply saying something that's untrue, because proving actual malice is a burden that's far too high to bear. We're doing an event on that. So anyway, Go to heritage.org/events and you will see our sort of advertisement for New York Times versus Sullivan and revisiting the defamation, libel, and slander burdens of proof.
Neat. So here's Norm Macdonald on The View. This is the clip that we were talking about when he comes down on Hillary and Bill Clinton. And I believe this shows that this man is conservative.
Canadian.
Yes, I am.
So what do you think of this whole presidential mess?
Well, I hope that the Democrats don't steal the election from the winner, you know, but who knows?
You like George Bush, don't you?
I love George Bush, man. He's a good man, decent, you know, none of this.
The crowd is cheering for George Bush, by the way. And this is back in the day when they were supposed to hate him there. So that's a good start. Here we go.
Yeah, he's you know, he's not a liar, a crook, murderer, or anything like that. So it'd be good to get the. See, I think we should get the homicide out of the White House and get like a fresh start, because we don't want any more murderers.
I think we should just go on to the next question.
Oh.
Who are the murderers? Yeah.
Oh, Clinton, he murdered a guy.
Yeah, you know, we're not allowed to. You're not allowed to put out no accusations without.
That's a little too far.
So is he covered because he's a comedian?
Well, I guess we would only have to drag Bill Clinton into court to figure out whether or not what he's saying is actually true and whether or not he did actually commit murder. Remember, we've got somebody in O.J. Simpson. I can talk about him now, right? Because he's departed. He was acquitted of murder. He was found civilly liable for wrongful death. Okay, so sometimes the standards are very distinct, but that would require the Clintons to say, okay, we're actually going to mount a legal case against him for defamation. Interestingly, we never saw a lawsuit like that. Do you know why? Because truth is an absolute defense to defamation. If they didn't have anything to defend, they probably had no reason to actually bring the lawsuit in the first place. So You know, Norm Macdonald said it. There are a lot of other people who said it. There are a lot of other people that say Jeffrey Epstein didn't hang himself. So I think by the time, and this actually circles back to what we were talking about at the beginning of the show, which is if AG Pam Bondi gets her hands on that Epstein list, I'll tell you what, there's a whole lot of the American hierarchy in cultural and political institutions that is going to go down swinging.
No kidding. But here's a little bit more Norm Macdonald, and then we'll get out of here.
Let's just go on to the next question.
Yeah.
This is not my week. What can I tell you?
Oh, it's not mine either, and I'm being very nice, okay? Be a good boy. Now, Norm.
Do you never hear that?
No. Listen,
Norm,
we don't need
I
to
don't
talk
want to get
about
into
that.
this, and I don't want to hear it, and this is not the place to make those accusations, and you're supposed to be funny. Let's get on to the next question. So get with it.
There you go.
How expensive was this set, by the way? Look how deep this set is. It's so much.
Norm, but you have been properly chastised by Barbara, so I'm now going to ask the next question.
I thought it was a matter of record.
Shut up! Look,
Okay.
let me do this, okay?
I'll tell you what's a matter of record. You will not be invited back if you don't shut up. All right, now.
What happened to Star Jones?
Yeah, that's a great question. And what I find interesting is they're not countering what he said. They're all just trying to shut him up. Very interesting.
Because they all know it's true.
Wait. Star Jones was on The View yesterday. They brought her back yesterday. Interesting. She's still alive.
Let's talk football.
Anyway, he doesn't drop it. And there's Joy Behar from what was this 24 years ago, 23 years ago, this clip?
I mean, she literally looks like a different person. It's amazing.
It's, well, you know, hate will change you quickly.
Yeah.
One thing we don't have on this show is hate, and I love you both. I think this has been a great show. I liked hanging out with y'all. It has been 75 minutes. I think that's enough to wrap it up tonight. And I'll let you guys go back to your lives. Very separate, very different places. You just happen to have the same dog. So I want to shout out again my guests, Sarah Partial Perry, Sarah P. Perry, and EJ Antoni. What is your handle on Twitter? I need to learn it.
At real EJ Antoni.
Is there a fake one?
There's a ton of fake ones. They're all like crypto scammers try to, they keep DMing people and saying, oh, hey, I have this, crypto thing you should invest in, blah, blah, blah. So just look for the blue check mark.
Yeah. That's important. So EJ Antoni, again, two of the great scholars of our time. And I mean that in both legal and economics over at the Heritage Foundation. If you guys want to go over to heritage.org, and you can just look them up as well. They've got a ton of great work over there. And I would recommend that you do that before you ask me any questions or ask your family any questions about politics. Just go read their papers. Don't bother me. That's what I say. Go read Heritage papers. Don't bother me. Thanks for being here, guys. We will see you a Sunday night. Oh, wait, it's the Super Bowl, isn't it? No, it's not going to happen then. So I'll see you guys on Monday because nobody's going to watch this on a Sunday night. We're going to have a good time and go get some steak on Sunday night at our country club that you guys are always welcome to come to DFW separately to come see us in, and look forward to that one day. So
I gotta be there in March actually, and
we won't be here.
Dallas Fort Worth.
No, March is not looking good.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So anyway,
sure it's not.
Actually, I'm supposed to fly to Pittsburgh to do a pilot show or something. I don't know what's happening there. Anyway,
so I'm going to fly south. You're going to fly north. We'll just wave at each other as our planes go by.
Let's just hope that we're not landing at DC at the same time. All right, guys. We will talk to you later. It's been great hanging out. Love y'all. Sarah Perry, EJ Antoni, Heritage Foundation.